Hi, I'm Marcy Jasper, a business consultant with vocational rehabilitation services with the state of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Haley Moss. I'm an attorney and disability advocate who is also autistic from Miami, Florida. Welcome to this bite-sized disability learning module called Defining Disability and the Americans with Disabilities Act. To start our conversation, it is important to explain why this and other disability modules for businesses were created. Disabilities affect 25% of Americans and influence today's drive for a strong economy and diverse workforce. We hope to assist employers and businesses in their disability hiring and inclusion efforts. So the intent of these modules is to provide education that is simple, impactful, and relatable. Each module is just 15 minutes or less and can be delivered either virtually or in person at a team meeting or a huddle. The goal of these modules is to further your work group's understanding of various disability topics and ways of creating an inclusive work environment to successfully hire, onboard, and retain employees with disabilities. Today's module is just one in a series. You are encouraged to watch them all to learn more about the opportunities in this disability inclusion space. Whether or not you know it, about 1 in 4 people you may meet has a disability, according to 2018 data from the Center for Disease Control. That's about 61 million people with disabilities. If you take a moment to think about people you know in your family and in the community, do you know a person with a disability? Disability spans all age, gender, ethnic, and racial categories. You don't look like you have a disability. I would never know unless you told me. Many people with disabilities, including myself, have heard this statement. Arguably, though, the majority of people with disabilities have conditions that are not obvious to others. Though we typically think of the wheelchair image when we think of disability, many people have invisible disabilities, such as depression, diabetes, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorders, or cancer.
Hidden, invisible, or visible, the importance of disability inclusion in the workplace was highlighted with the passage of the American with Disabilities Act, or better known as the ADA. The ADA is a civil rights law that was passed in 1990 and implemented in 1992. It has 5 titles to it, but today we are talking about Title I, which deals with employment of people with disabilities. The intent of Title I is to prohibit private employers, state and local governments, employment agencies, and labor unions from discriminating against qualified individuals with disabilities in the job application procedure, hiring, firing, advancement, compensation, job training, and other terms, conditions, and privileges of employment. The ADA covers employers with 15 or more employees, including state and local governments. So what does this mean? It means that the ADA prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. It also means it requires employers to make reasonable accommodations for qualified individuals with a disability to be able to perform the essential functions of the job. Essential functions are defined as the fundamental job duties of the employment position the individual with a disability holds or desires. Failing to do so, unless the accommodation is unreasonable, may be considered discriminatory. It also means that the ADA is there to level the playing field for individuals with disabilities, to prevent employers from making assumptions about their abilities, and to drive accommodation solutions for their individual success. With the ADA in place, employers are being asked to assess an individual's abilities and needs based on the essential functions of the job held or desired, potential reasonable accommodations that might enable the person to address disability and job-related barriers, and the values, skills, and strengths that the individual can bring to the position.
So you might be asking yourself, who is someone that fits under this definition of having a disability? How does the ADA define disability? Those are great questions. A person with a disability is someone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Here are a few of the major life activities that will help us better understand the practical application of this definition. For example, a person with a physical disability may have a personal care assistant at home to assist with daily living. Someone with a vision impairment may use a screen reader to read emails at home or at work. It could also be someone with ADHD, a brain injury, or migraines that has difficulty with concentrating.
To be protected by the ADA and classified as a qualified person with a disability, an individual must have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity, satisfy your job requirements for educational background, employment experience, skills, license, and other qualification standards that are job related, and be able to perform those tasks that are essential to the job with or without reasonable accommodation. Here's a listing of potential conditions that would likely be covered under the ADA. It's not an exhaustive list, and further, the name, label, or diagnosis doesn't guarantee that an individual has a limitation in a major life activity. However, if a person has a diagnosis or a number of diagnoses listed above, and they are impacted by having a limitation in a major life activity, that individual would have protections under the ADA to request a reasonable accommodation and ensure they are treated equally and fairly in all stages of employment. We will go more in depth on accommodations and the accommodation process in a future module. So look forward to more to come on that subject.
I also wanted to share my own example of how I fit the definition of having a disability under the ADA for you to be able to apply it to your own learning today. As I mentioned earlier, I am on the autism spectrum, and for me, my autism is a mental impairment that affects certain things such as concentrating, learning, and being able to do daily tasks. That means that I have a disability under the ADA definition. In summary, individuals with disabilities have a lot of talent, skills, and strengths to contribute to the workplace. People with disabilities have a right under the ADA to fair and equal treatment and reasonable accommodations to be successful in employment. The process to identify who has these rights and needs starts with you as an employer being knowledgeable about the ADA and being open to these discussions surrounding disability and needs. Once you are aware of the disability needs, the first step is determining if the individual meets the definition of a disability to begin the reasonable accommodation process. You have an obligation to know the role that you will play in complying with the ADA. In doing so, you will come to see the benefits and value that people with disabilities bring to the table and the diversity they add to your workplace to meet your overall business needs.
So as a further wrap up to our module, we ask that you to take a bite out of learning and have a discussion with your team. We have a takeaway card for you to reference with this assigned activity. The activity we're asking you to engage in is to discuss 3 questions as a team or in pairs. Number 1, do you know a person who has a disability, either inside or outside of work? What do you recognize, appreciate, or value about that person? Take a few minutes to share with your teammate. Number 2, what other conditions could be covered under the ADA? And the third one, now that you have a better understanding about what the ADA definition of a disability is, what can you do to create awareness within your company or organization? So take a few minutes to go over this, and then come back as a team and share some of your reflections or thoughts surrounding these questions with the group.
If you have questions about this module or need further resources for hiring and retaining individuals with disabilities in your workplace, you can reach out to disabilityinclusion.deed@state.mn.us. Thank you very much for joining us for this module. Here are also 2 great resources for you to tap into related to this ADA topic: the Job Accommodation Network and the ADA National Network.
Thank you for taking a bite out of learning. Getting to the core of the ADA will help us all to build a more disability inclusive environment.